It is 10 o'clock.
Let's do it.
And I believe we have a quorum. Is Diana on here?
Diana's on.
Okay.
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect. So we have a quorum. So I'll call the meeting to order. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So Brian's got it. Brian's got it. I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Perfect. Then we shall move on to discussion items. Facilities reopening update. Nikki, thank you, by the way, for sending all the information last night.
Oh, you're very welcome. So good morning, everyone.
On the facilities reopening update, since we've got some really tight agenda items, can we just keep it to what are the really critical issues and everything is fine, just say so?
Everything's fine. I don't need to go through the whole report. The only thing I just wanted to let you all know was just the playgrounds. We're just having concerns with the playgrounds with residents not wearing facial masks.
Okay, so on that note, board, what do you wish to do with regards to the playgrounds? Do we just leave it be, or do we have a motion to do something with regarding the playground, regarding the face masks?
Just a straw person. How about enhancing signage on the continued reminder that this is a county ordinance and a consequence of non-compliance is playgrounds get closed down on those sites where there's non-compliance. Just as a straw person. I don't make that as a motion, it's just as a potential next step. Or do we just let it go? Or do we just let it go? I mean, the alternative is just let it go.
I think we should do signage, and I think we should have something in the Friday flash saying, hey, COVID still exists. You know, the president came out today, as we all know. So let's go with something in the flash and say, you really need to take this serious. We're moving into fall, and we want to keep everything open.
And we're starting to see we're starting to see numbers go back up.
So.
Nikki, is there any particular signage that you believe would help with that communication in addition to Friday Flash?
And on site. I'm also suggesting on site.
No, I understand that. That's why I'm asking. What
You.
additional things can we do on site in addition to Friday Flash?
Yeah, thank you.
We have a few facial ordinance signs at each playground, but I'll work with the team to see if we can put a few more up.
Okay, thank you. I mean, the reality is our resource to call if there's a problem is the sheriff. And the sheriff won't do anything. So our only alternative is we close it down. That's the reality of it.
Nikki, do you have a sense if it's all playgrounds or a certain one or two? Do you have a sense or not?
As far as the reports, it looks like it's mostly the Spring Park playground, the open playground.
Okay. I would make sure there's extra signage there, and we could do a targeted shutdown, just like we did with basketball. I think the point is we're taking this seriously, and we just have to do what we have to do to show that.
Nikki, a quick comment. Is it possible to do like a tent sign like we had for the pools and everything over there? I just saw a sign that they're 8x10 signs. Maybe we can do larger signage so as people come on, they can be reinforced and residents can actually point to it. Hey, you need to be putting your face mask on. Maybe that will help a little bit too. Is that something that's possible?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Okay,
we'll look at the 11x17 signage. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Any other comments, board?
When you say 11x17, those are those big things, right?
Yeah, the ones that are at the pools.
Yeah, you said 11x17. That sounds like a piece of paper.
Those are the ones that are hanging at the pools right now, the 11x17.
But I think Vanessa's talking about the things that are what, 3 feet wide and 4 feet tall? Isn't that what you're saying, Vanessa?
The ones that are similar at the pool, whatever we're using at the pool. Unless they're going to walk away with it. I mean,
you're talking about like the big sandwich boards?
Yeah, it's like an A-frame.
A-frame, yeah. Okay,
thank you. That's what I'm looking for. If that's something that's possible, recognize that we're looking for something a little bit larger as people walk onto the playgrounds, and then you can bounce whatever ideas back to the board if you need to, or just figure it out and see how it works.
You got it. We'll do.
Thank you so much, Nikki.
Thank you.
Is there anything else you needed, Nikki, from the board with regards to facilities reopening?
No, other than that, it was just the playground. That was just the issues. Everything else is going well so far.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks to you and your team for working so hard on this. We really appreciate it.
And the report, again, someone said this already, the report reads
Yep.
well. It's very helpful. Thank you.
I would agree. Okay. Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you.
Item number 2, motion to appoint David Hume
Hume.
as the management company RFP to the management company RFP task force.
I will make that motion.
And I will second that.
Discussion?
I'll make a brief comment. We had prior approved 4 people. We had a 5th opening, which we put David in. The group actually had its first meeting the other day. David participated, did a great job. I strongly encourage the board to support this. We're off and rolling. We have 3 board liaisons. I'll talk about it at the board meeting, but we're off and going.
Yeah.
Just a quick update. The protocol we used on that is David was the next one to step in line. He's a resident in good standing, or excuse me, an owner in good standing, and so he was the next one in line to speak out first. So David is welcome to the task force as far as I'm concerned. Also, any other board comment? Okay, then we'll call the vote. David, yes or no?
Yes.
Mary Ann?
Yes.
Diana?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And I'm not sure if Kevin has made it on yet, or I don't see him on here.
I don't see.
Okay.
And just quick point of information on that. We are now full with residents, but if other residents are interested, just with any committee, if it's full, application can go in and that would be considered if there's a vacancy. But right now the committee is full.
Correct, but that they're welcome to attend public meetings too. Go ahead. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Right.
You're still welcome to be engaged. And then I'm a yes. So
Oh, good. Thanks.
David Hume you interrupted my vote call.
Sorry,
David.
I thought you had already voted. Thank you. I apologize.
All good.
Thought we were done.
So whoever just needs to reach out and add David to all of the emails with regards to the RFP, please.
He's
Awesome. I thought he has already been active. Now he can actually vote too. So Halloween communication and celebration, public notice and community notice. Board comments. There were lots of them floating around on email. So this is your opportunity to share your thoughts, board. And then I will start with the board and then I'll open it up to public comment.
I'll be happy to go first. We've had JR drafting stuff and deal and that. We have had subsequent conversation with CDD and members there. On the call today, we've got Gary Moyer and we've also got Natasha, both from the CDD. Legally, the county has decided to do nothing other than to encourage people to practice safe Halloween practices, and those were issued by the CDC. The sheriff in the past has had a broader deputy presence. This year, the sheriff is proposing to have 4 sheriff's deputies on bicycles, and that would be the sole presence. So I think one of the things we have to consider or ask the CDD to consider maybe is that enough presence, or do we need to expand it? Would we need to spend money versus having the sheriff provide them? I think that's something we need to consider. And then there's been a lot of banter on the porches about Halloween and how, CROA has no power to shut down Halloween. We don't have power to shut down Halloween. I don't think CROA is arguing that at all. So I think the question from one board member's perspective is all we can really do is encourage safe practices. And can we do signage to communicate to external parties that we're really not encouraging Halloween, and see if we can cut down on the thousands. And we have hundreds or thousands, pick your choice, of people who come here and the streets are full and everything. And I do think probably it would be impossible to practice safe social distancing if we have all the people we normally get. So that's kind of my perspective, but as I said, other board members on where I think we're at.
David, go ahead. I see your hand.
Let me jump in. Yeah, see, I think if we have a philosophy of encouraging safe practices, that will not communicate outside our community. And I am most concerned about the thousands and thousands and thousands of non-celebration residents on our streets. I would like to take a stance of discouraging any engagement, to discourage. And so I know that JR's language says encouraging residents to forego door-to-door trick-or-treating. The CDC has been very clear. They discourage door-to-door. I want to discourage door-to-door. That is high risk. To encourage safe practices, to me, does not discourage door-to-door. And I want to discourage door-to-door. I want to communicate to those outside celebration, we are not open this year. I know we cannot close, but I want to communicate that we are not open this year. It is unsafe to have thousands of people on our streets. I know that door-to-door will happen with residents and neighbors. I think that's, that's okay. It's still risky, but I want to have a very clear statement to the outside. And I know that would not be popular if this is viewed by non-celebration residents, but that's, to me, our responsibility as an HOA is to protect our community.
Thank you, David. Any other, Diana, any other residents?
Yeah, I understand. Yes, thanks,
from board members before opening to residents? Go ahead.
Thanks, Vanessa. David, I understand what you're saying about discouraging trick-or-treating, but honestly, I think even if we say we're discouraging it, they're still going to come. I don't think that we're going to keep outside residents in because it's such a big event. I think the wording that I would recommend is that we encourage everyone to follow CDC guidelines, including not for door-to-door trick-or-treating, but I don't know how we could word that to say you can't come to celebration to trick-or-treat. I'm very concerned about the only 4 sheriff representation on 4 bicycles. That's it. I don't know how many we had last year, but I'd be curious to compare that. I think we had them at every major intersection directing traffic. And 4 bicycles, it's going to become a safety hazard because people won't be able to get in and out. So I'm very concerned about that.
I think
Vanessa?
just for record, I think it was 8 is what I remember reading in something before was 8. I think that was from Cliff Akey that had sent that at one of the email exchanges. So I don't disagree with you at all.
Yeah, I know. I saw them at every major intersection, Waterside, East Lawn, Celebrate, campus, directing traffic. And 4 is very concerning. So whether we have to hire them ourselves or add additional expense to hire, even if the traffic doesn't come, I still think we should have them available.
Correct. I agree. Natasha, yeah, we were referring to the previous year. It was 8, and this year it's been dropped to 4. Thank you for the clarification, Natasha, from CCDD. Board comment, Marianne, I think Kevin, I just saw him pop in too. Any other comments?
No, I think it's all been said. I mean, I think this is one where we're kind of in an unwinnable situation. So I know I have nothing to add to this.
Thank you, Marianne. Kevin, I saw you're in here too. Did you have any comments on Halloween?
Morning, everybody. Yeah, I did send out my email. While I, agree that there's a way that we can go ahead and share the message that, we discourage or that we promote that social distancing, we promote the masks, we remind everybody of the Osceola County mandate. I don't think it's really CROA's place to turn around and say that celebration is not doing trick-or-treating. We represent the entire community, and some do choose to go ahead and participate either trick-or-treating or giving out candy. So it's something that we, just as neighbors, can encourage. Hey, block off your step with caution tape. Go ahead and turn your lights off. Things like that. But I think it's a hard push to turn around and say no trick-or-treating in a community that's not gated with public roads.
Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate your thoughts on that. Any other comments from the board prior to opening it to public comment?
Vanessa, I'll add a comment following up on what Kevin said there. Two things that have crossed my mind. there's a real possibility. I think a lot of people come to Celebration because we pass out a lot of candy, but they consider it safe. In the COVID world, you might have more people who think it's going to be safer to come to Celebration than other places. We could have as many people or more than in past years. It's a distinct possibility. We don't know. Maybe in signage that we put up, we tell people that, people who aren't participating are going to have tape or something across the front of their sidewalk. Please respect that or something. Because I struggle with how we enforce it. We can not encourage it, but people are going to do what they want to do. But if we have some way of making it clear, people with tape across the front of something are not participating, at least we help create some distancing. And I don't think 4 is nearly enough.
I agree.
I've had front porch locked off and people coming past the tape.
Yep.
So
here's my thoughts before opening again to public comment. I think a couple of things. I think if we have the signage, only if you're going to Halloween, I'm trying to think of how to do this. If you're going to be trick or treating, if you must have only go to those that have front porch lights on, right? So reinforcing that, and then CDC or something of the nature of CDC is suggesting no trick or treating, and masks are required per our Osceola County ordinance. And then have that out there, and then hopefully we just need to make sure that people have. You're right. It needs to be if your lights are off and you're blocked off, please don't enter their porch. So I'm really concerned with how we do it, but I also I recognize the fact that we really need to be communicating something to the residents to this state of. You need to be respectful of the neighbors and make sure that, good God, my email is like popping up a ton here. Sorry about that. So we really need to do something to discourage people coming onto your porches if you don't want people up there, regardless of the residents or not. And I don't know how to phrase that on a billboard. I don't know how to do that.
JR did 2 drafts. I'm not clear what the difference is are they different purposes? I'm just
but those are
those press releases. I don't know.
I think we can go ahead and do just kind of give some feedback and we gave it really open direction to JR. How would it look based upon knowing our consensus? And unfortunately, there's no one on the board that agrees 100% with each other, which makes it hard to provide direction to management. So, it makes it that much more of a challenge, which is why I was hoping we'd get as many people on for the discussion as possible from the board. So thank you all for everybody joining in. At this time, I will open it up to resident comment and then we'll loop back. So again, if you're going to comment, please make sure you keep it to less than 3 minutes. David's my timekeeper, and keep it clean and concise as possible. And if you've already heard what's been said, you obviously are still more than welcome to speak, but just recognize that it's been addressed. Joseph, I see your hand up.
Just from history, we know that on these special event nights, regardless of whether it's a planned event or a holiday style event, it takes hours for some people to get back in or out of the community. Traffic really needs to be a priority that these sheriffs are placed on, because we know from 20 years of history, we need them at and assisting with exiting and entrance into the community. Done.
Thank you. Thank you, Joseph. Appreciate that. Any other comments from the public? Board, I'll ask for your assistance on this.
Yeah, Vanessa?
Yeah, go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, my suggestion is that as part of the Friday Flash, when we get closer to Halloween, that in that Friday Flash, we put the sheriff's non-emergency telephone number, and if it's an emergency, they should call 911. Because again, we've all lived through these events, and frankly, I don't care how many sheriffs we put out there, traffic is still going to be a problem. There may be other incidences that require sheriff's participation. And I think if there's a problem, they need to go through the proper protocol of calling the sheriff.
Thank you, Gary. And just for record, Gary is the executive director for CCDD and ECDD. Thank you, Gary. I appreciate that. Any other comments? Eileen, go ahead. Eileen Barr.
Hello. Hi, Eileen Barr, 1138 Mosaic Drive. I'd still like to see something that CROA produces that allows houses to have either a sign or something other than just turning your lights off that say, yes, we're participating, or no, we're not participating. It might not be of help for those people who get a great influx from outside celebration, but certainly using the Friday Flash, we can say if you see an orange sign, that house is welcoming people. And if you see a whatever colors, maybe a black sign, no, we will not be participating this year. I don't like turning my lights off on my front porch. And if people want to walk around and look at pretty houses on Halloween, I think that's something we should encourage, a tour of the neighborhood. So, dark houses do not really, appeal to me. And one of the other things that I'm thinking about doing is that we have a number of small kids on our block we're out in Artisan Park, so no one comes, but we have some that there are, these a thing called booing, and you make your bag and you put it on the kid's porch and you say, you've been booed. We will not be participating in trick or treat, but here's your gift. So you're a little proactive on it. Thank you.
Thanks, Eileen. And yeah, I think putting a sign on your front door, as a homeowner, we are not participating in Halloween, will help with that. For whoever just put the little post a sign. Yes, you don't need to put caution tape everywhere. You can just post a sign on your door. No trick or treating. It can be very simple. Any other comments from the public? Somebody's unmuted. Go ahead. Anybody? Okay. I'm going to mute whoever is. You got it? Okay. Then on that note, any other comments from the board?
Yeah, I just want to reinforce, and I don't know I haven't heard any other board members say this. I do not welcome outsiders. I know we don't have enforcement authority, we don't have legal authority, but I want to be very clear to discourage non-residents from coming in our community on Halloween night. I think we are asking for trouble. I agree with Brian. I fully expect a bigger influx than in the past. And so if we were clear in our communication outside the community, we discourage any door-to-door trick-or-treating this year. And inside, I mean, it's a delicate balance too. So inside, we also do things ahead of or the day of for neighbor kids. So that's going to happen. But to do otherwise, I think we need to communicate clearly to the outside, to discourage engagement here.
So maybe just
it's a safety issue. It's a health and safety issue for our residents. Our role in CROA is about our residents.
Do you think go ahead, Vanessa,
Marianne.
sorry. No, well, I was going to say, do you think it's a fair statement if what was put out in a more public way is that due to, the current situation, that very few of the households in celebration will be participating? Because we don't know if that's true or not. That's the problem. But I mean, I agree that we want to kind of let people know it's not going to be like usual.
Yeah, exactly.
But we have to also be careful in how we present that, I would think, from a public relations standpoint.
Exactly.
How about something as simple as per CDC guidelines,
right?
Door-to-door trick-or-treating is highly discouraged.
It's high risk and therefore highly discouraged.
It's high risk. Well, I don't know how much you can actually put on a board. So, so high risk, therefore highly discouraged. So that's something that I think we can just make it simple and to the point. We can't prohibit it, but we can certainly discourage it, just like the CDC is discouraging it.
Exactly my point. And I know there's a difference between, we have multiple vehicles, and JR did these two drafts, which might be like a press announcement, a press release. And then you tear it down, and you have, when you have the electronic signage, of course, that's limited with words.
Right. And I'm fine actually with what JR's signage or his emails, and he clarified the fact that one was for the community and one was a draft release for the media. So I think I'm fine with that. But again, we're discouraging it. We're not prohibiting it. We can't. But we're certainly following CDC guidelines on that.
Exactly. And that's what we said we were going to do 6 months ago. We're following CDC guidelines.
We think,
go ahead.
Get a press release, somebody's going to read it.
Well, we can only do what we can do.
Oh,
I mean, I don't know where else to go with it.
Thank you, Vanessa. That's right.
I know. I'm just struggling.
I am too, but I think we need to have something out there, just because I think it is an issue here. I think there's two things that the board needs to discuss also is how do we want to handle this, the increase. I think we, as a board, I haven't heard anybody say that 4 is enough for the community.
We need to be over-prepared.
Correct. So I think the board needs to at least provide some direction, understanding there's only going to be 4. What do we want to do as a CROA board to help facilitate that? And I don't know if that means Jerry and Neil working together to try and figure out what we really need. JR and I meant JR reaching out to the sheriff. How can we make this? How can we make this work? And then work together with Neil on that. Thoughts, board, or Neil or JR?
Look at what we did in the past, knowing where we didn't do any notification. Look at what we did in the past, maintain that, or perhaps increase that.
I think from the perspective of sheriff's deputies, we ought to rely on Cliff and CDD. They have the relationships. They're going to be much more effective than us. If it's got to be paid for by CDD and or CROA, fine, then we cross that bridge. But Cliff and Gary will be the most effective people at getting additional sheriff deputies.
Agreed.
Gary's on here. He can disagree with me if I'm wrong.
No, I mean, here's my warning to our CDD board, and I will tell you as well. We have not ever done that for Halloween. The sheriff recognizes that this is a high impact area with lots of people coming in, and he staffed that in the past and paid for it himself from our tax money. If we do this now and we jump in the middle of it and say, okay, we want 8 people or we want 10 people and we're willing to pay for it, my concern is we never go back. We're always going to be responsible for Halloween, and the sheriff will say, well, you did it last year, you can do it this year. That's my concern. And we pay a boatload of taxes to the county.
I think that's a fair concern, but can't we put
I agree with that.
Cutting the presence in this year when we think celebration could even have more due to perceived safety is at least an argument we can make?
Yeah.
So I think, I guess that I actually agree with Gary's sentiments on that, and it sounds like the rest of the board. I heard Kevin chime in. So I think we're all on the same page with regards to that, Gary. How can we work to lobby the sheriff's department to increase their number from 4 up to at least to 8 where it was?
Yeah.
Make that happen.
I think
control it, but we can at least lobby. Do you need CROA?
Yeah, I think it would be helpful if CROA had a resolution saying we're asking the sheriff to provide the same number of people that he did in the past, and there's more reason to provide more, but at least no less than the 8 people that he's provided. And you can send that to the sheriff. The CDD board will do the same thing. We got a lame duck sheriff, frankly, and I don't know how he will respond to that.
Right.
The suggestion for 4 deputies came from the people that we're working with in the sheriff's department. And we'll continue to work with those people. I mean, at one time we were told they were going to put 7 people in celebration. Then they came back a week ago and said, no, we're only going to put 4 bicycle people in celebration. So we're going in the wrong direction, and that's what concerns me about if we do it one year, we're going to end up doing it every year.
Okay,
Yeah.
fair enough. So, go ahead, Brian.
I have a real concern about bicycles. We all know that if you're driving down the road and you see police lights blinking, you slow down. You know, you probably don't even see the darn bicycle. You know, having a few cop cars in these right strategic places with the lights blinking will necessitate slowing down and safety.
Even if we had them stationed right by the billboards, the digital billboards as people enter in, flashing lights next to those, I think would reinforce it too, that we are discouraging trick-or-treating here.
My only one thing, I just don't want to tie us to 8. I've been digging through some emails and communications. I don't know why I have the number 13 stuck in my head for officers. And then when I go ahead and I lay out whatever call seeing, I count more than 8. So I just would be careful on restricting us when we go back to say, hey, in the past you've given us 8, make sure you give us 8. I would just go ahead and say in the past you've given us many more. And we'd like to go ahead and see that same plan that you've executed in 2018 and 2019. I'll keep digging for some information, but I don't want to tie ourselves at 8 and they come back and settle at 6.
Fair enough. That's a good point. Thank you. Go ahead, David.
Kevin, in my head, it was 20. It's because I mean, I don't know. But I think your point is, let's maintain what we had in the past.
Vanessa, could I jump in for a second?
Go ahead, Natasha. Thank you. And Natasha's from the CCDD also. Thank you, Natasha.
Hi, I did want to clarify too. The sheriff's actually provided 15 details about last year, according to Lieutenant Yeager. So they did have and they paid for all of that, as Gary indicated earlier. The other thing I wanted to comment on was, in our last CCDD board meeting, the discussion with our board members was we do have 3 signs available that we can put at each of the exits. We were waiting to hear back from JR what the verbiage was that he wanted to put on those signs. Our board's only request was that it was to be discouraging to residents, to outside people coming in, and to not be trained. That was the idea.
Thank you, Natasha. I appreciate that.
And the digital.
Any other comments?
From the CDD, Vanessa.
Yeah, go ahead,
I also
Ross.
heard in discussion, digital billboards. Is the county providing those? Because we do not have digital billboards. Ours are like a 4x8 with the fluorescent lights in the back, and it's a plexiglass, and then we can put the black lettering on it.
JR was looking into doing the digital and actually renting it was
cool.
He had looked into. That's what he had looked into. So we have
put those out maybe like out on 192 and so forth. And then we can still put ours in there, in like one on Campus Street, right by the library, one on Waterside Drive, and one right before North Village, if you would like us to do that also to kind of discourage or have the verbiage, whatever you would like.
I think that would be great. I don't think you can ever have too many signs to put out there. I'd agree.
And we can put ours out, 10 days in advance if you would like us to.
Okay.
It's
perfect.
Just not going to be, I think signs kind of out on 192 might get the word out, whatever it is that your board decides to do versus ours would be more in the community. So that would be kind of, as they're trick-or-treating, they might see the signs.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Actually, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, in that communication, I just forwarded off a sheriff event plan that Jerry created in 2018 to the full board and to Neil. That might be your best presentation back to the sheriff's office. Is exactly what they've recommended in the past. Just give it right back to them. So go ahead. Sorry. I just want to make sure everybody sees that.
Thank you, Kevin. Brian, go ahead.
No, I again, like the press release didn't excite me too much, but I think getting signage out by the middle of October out on 192 that makes it very clear, and I agree with, we want to do CDC recommended and discouraging door to door, blah, blah, blah. Our residents will do what our residents want to do, and we can have internal stuff, but I think that'll be the most effective communication that we can have.
Agreed. Any other comments on the board?
I would like us to do Gary's motion. I don't think we've got good enough wording for today, but the next time we meet, I think it would be good to have somebody, JR Neal, perfect the wording with Gary so that we can adopt that motion. CDD is going to do likewise, and then it goes to the sheriff, which I think would be encouraging.
And we need to do that quickly. So I agree. What, Gary, when is the, when's the next CCDD meeting where you guys will vote?
It won't be until the end of the month. It's the fourth
And, okay.
Tuesday.
It's October 27th.
Day
Will you
before
be,
ours. Yeah.
will you be able to get some CCDD consensus on things beforehand for posting, or do you need the actual vote on that?
No, I think the way where we are right now is that we're looking to CROA to give us what you recommend, and I've been authorized to implement that.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Then we'll work on, we have a little more flexibility with the board on how to make that work. JR or Neil, do either of you need anything specifically from the board now before moving on regarding Halloween? If somebody is responding, you're muted.
JR, is there anything else that you need direction-wise?
As far as the electronic signage that I had sent to Neil and he had passed along to the board, is that something you want to move forward with? Because that's something we'll have to get reserved. That was scheduled to go up, and that can change, but that was scheduled to go up October 19th through Halloween.
I personally believe the electronic signage is important. I think it'll be our most effective way of communicating with the community.
Totally agree. So do we have a motion? So
we
do we
can
have
do
a
both.
motion to approve the electronic signage? The 3 electronic signs that that JR had said, or the 2?
What was the
Could
cost
these be a
difference, Vanessa?
CCS?
It should be able to be a CCS, but we can't vote on that on this meeting for CCS, but it could be.
And what was the cost difference between the two?
It's like $100 and something, wasn't it? I think one was like 9. What was the difference, JR? I don't have it right in front of me. I'm sorry. Anybody?
Yeah, I'm
Like
looking
12
for it right now.
Okay, I think it was like $1,200 for the 3.
For 3 of them, it would be $1,275 for the 3, $950 for the 2.
Okay.
But would we also have the other signage?
Yes, we'll still use CCDD
Okay.
signs.
So it's be 3 plus 2 or 3.
But the CDD would be more community oriented. The 3,
Exactly.
the 3 would be a communication type thing. I agree with Kevin. It should be CCS, and it's community safety and everything what we're doing here. So there's no argument that's the right place. I would encourage all 3 because
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
communication is better.
Let's do it. Put a motion out for all 3.
I make a motion that we reserve all 3 signs for posting on October 19th with the message to be determined in the interim period.
Second.
Any board discussion? And I do see that there's a public comment, and I'll open it to you in just a moment, though. But I want to make sure the board has, before opening it up.
So I'm good with it. I just want to make sure that if we are going to make it a CCS expense, can we do that here?
No, we haven't noticed this meeting.
We have not. It's not noticed. We'll get it up there. I think there was something else we needed to vote on officially. There may have been something else we need to vote on, although it's under the expense threshold, so we really don't need to have a CCS
Correct.
meeting for that, correct?
I'm willing to change. I'm willing to change the motion to say that the CROA board agrees it should be referred to CCS for expenditure.
Yeah, that's
Not to
fine.
get a true statement.
Okay.
That's fine. I second that.
Okay, and I see Kevin's thumbs up on that one. I will, whoever is, Diana, are you good with that?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. I see Mary Ann's thumbs up too. Whoever is raising their hand, could you please identify yourself?
Hi, Vanessa. This is Celia McFadden.
Hi, Celia.
How are you?
Good, thank you.
The signs are going to go on 192, the flashing signs, right?
Yes, where the public is. Yes, so people
Okay.
coming into Celebration will see it. So my guess is we have 3. So I think probably one at 192 as you're coming in, one probably over by World Drive, and then maybe one on Celebration Place, something of that nature. I think is the 3 main entrances into Celebration.
Perfect.
I was definitely thinking World Drive there because people going to the high school and all those other schools and into town will see it there.
Correct.
They had that up a couple of years ago for when we had no
Fireworks.
fireworks, and it seemed
Correct.
to work.
I agree.
Can I make 2 comments? But it doesn't refer to Halloween. It refers to Spring Park with the signs.
I'll tell you what, hold on a second. Let me finish this motion here, and then I promise I'll call back on you. Is that okay, Cecilia?
Sure.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so any other comments with regards to Halloween and specific to this sign in motion?
I have other comments on Halloween, but not about this motion.
Okay, then I'll call the vote. David, yes or
yes,
no?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Diana?
Yes.
Marianne? Kevin?
Yes.
Thank you, and I'm a yes. Motion passes. Neil, let us know what all you specifically need from us moving forward on this one. I see your head nodding. Thank you. Any other comments with
Two broad
regarding
things on
Halloween?
Two things, and we've talked about these. Just to clarify, our overall communications plan is the CDD 3 signs, these 3 digital signs, Friday Flash, and the press announcements that go out. So we're not relying on the signs, we're relying on a comprehensive communications plan. Is that correct?
That is what I am understanding.
That's what I'm understanding.
That's what Neil's shaking his head, so
good.
We're good.
Just want to clarify. The other thing, we had a loose end. I think Brian said, let's make it a motion. It came from Gary, and that's about making the formal request about sheriff's office presence to match what we had in the past. Does that need to be a voted on resolution, or is that just going to be worked through with Neil and JR?
My understanding was it was going to be just worked through with Neil and JR, but Neil, do you need a specific motion from us on that?
No, what Gary said was he needed a motion from the CROA board to present to the sheriff.
Okay.
I think, but I don't think we know the wording well enough today. So my request was that Neil work with Gary to give us the motion wording, and at our next meeting, and I don't have that in front of me right now.
The 16th.
But is that in time? Is that timely enough?
Or do we need to have a special meeting just to vote on that one motion?
I worry if that's not timely enough.
We'll work on Neil. Just let us know as soon as you get it and how soon you need to get on there, and we'll get it. We'll just make sure that we have a quick meeting to be able to affirm whatever needs to be affirmed for that. Is that reasonable?
Yes.
Okay.
And, David,
yes.
Just because you said it, so I'm speaking to really everybody, and I guess I'll be the bad guy. So yeah, communication-wise, using signages, not just from CCD, but our own internal memos, Friday Flash, release to the media. I think this is what the board has almost been backed into having to do, because early on we kind of got the message that we weren't going to get any support from the county with respect to supporting celebration this year with Halloween and the concern. So yes is the answer, but I feel it's important that it's said out loud. This is yes based on necessity, and CROA's board being backed into a position of being forced to kind of do all of this themselves.
Yes, and we started this conversation probably on your first day on the job, Neil.
Right.
With the joint county meeting with CDD and the county, talking about this issue in July.
Right. Yeah, so I think it's important that, if anybody, I'll be the bad guy, but yes, we need this excess expense, excess communication, and all these avenues to try to communicate, to advocate for CROA. Again, since it really is you guys as a board kind of navigating this on your own right now.
Yes, thank you.
Protecting the homeowners, yeah. So I want to recognize the fact that we have 2 people that are going to be cutting out, and I am still in the middle of actually moving my daughter. So I'm trying to do this amidst movers around. So we recognize that there's a time constraint. Is there anything else that you need from the board with regards to Halloween that we can't move, so that we can move forward with anything else that needs to be voted upon or get board consensus on? Are we good with Halloween for now? Board?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
It is, once the motion's done, if we need to call a 15-minute board meeting, we'll be able to get 4 people and we'll vote on it as soon as.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Is there anybody else? Celia, are we, we are really tight on time. Is there something, go ahead and if you could quickly address that.
I'll address something else. The farmer's market this Sunday. Did I mishear when you were discussing about the mandatory masks and hand sanitizers in town during the farmer's market, or was that not, did that not come to pass?
It was the director from the board that for the area that we had, that we would request masks. But again, it's all and hand sanitizer. The problem though is we cannot legally tell them no.
Legally
So
tell them no what? I
they-
thought there were going to be signs up saying masks required when entering into the farmer's market. I thought that was discussed.
I think it was.
And
the vendor was doing that. The vendor was doing
I think the vendor was doing it. My understanding, I was down there from noon to 1, and I didn't see anybody within the farmer's market area that didn't have masks and stuff on.
Okay, we must have been in a different farmer's market then.
No, I just
It's a county
I
ordinance.
was only there from 12 to 1. I wasn't there all the time. So
But if
I
there's
gotcha.
but if there's people that are coming in from outside of the community, there was no signage saying that masks are required. There was nothing out and at any of the entrances saying masks required. And you discussed it. It was at a CCS, it was at a workshop, and there was nothing out.
Okay, then we'll follow up on that. Thank you. Thank you, Celia. Thank you. Okay. So we just need to get back loop on that. If we could have just special events, try to figure out what we can do signage wise, et cetera, to make sure that happens. If there was a shortfall somewhere, which it sounds like there may have been at someone. So maybe just reach back out to the farmers market to encourage the signage and that. Any other comments from the board before moving on to the budgets?
Want to do number 4, or we need to do budgets first?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No. Good question.
No. We actually need to have the conversation about the CCDD request for the adjacent property that needs to be discussed.
Okay.
So thank you for bringing that to my attention,
Okay.
David. I'm distracted at
No,
best. Sorry.
I know. That's okay. We're a team.
So number 4, CCDD request to use the adjacent CROA property in the civic corridor. Just for some clarification on that, that was something that was discussed several years ago, back when we were doing the civic corridor. CCDD had an area there that they were using for, I think it was Davy Tree was putting stuff on there. So it's kind of like a catch-all location to put debris and things like that in. I don't recall what happened from then because then I was off the board. So I'm not sure where we went from point A to point B. So on this, I will open it up to, I guess, CCDD to kind of open and discuss what your needs are for that particular area. And then David, I'm going to have to pop off here pretty quick, I think. So
Yep.
just keep in mind when I disappear that I need you to take over.
I know we have 2 others leaving at 11.
Yeah, I know. Go ahead, Natasha. Or Russ.
For clarification, number 1, we do quite a few storm, utility repairs, unfortunately. And what that involves is there's a vac truck and they use a water jet. The water's collected from the fire hydrant and they put into their vac truck. And that's how we dig the hole down 3, 4, 5 feet deep, whatever is required to do a utility repair. And what they're doing is they're sucking up some mud or dirt with the water. So it's kind of mixed in a little bit. That's what's being dumped there. Also, the county does come out and clean the storm drains that they own out here when they get full of leaves. And that is just some brackish water. All it is rainwater that's been sitting in there. When their truck gets full from vacuuming, they can either got 2 options. They can either dump it somewhere on site, which we've been doing right here, or they drive about 12 miles back to their shop and do the same thing and then come back out here. And they're lucky sometimes if they can get 1 storm drain done a day when they're doing it that way. I want to completely let everyone know that there is not 1 drop of sewage that has been dumped over in the lot. It's either just basically dirty water from the hydrants or the rainwater and the leaves mixed in. That being said, it would be wonderful if we could maybe lease by, I don't know, a little bit of property. I could get by with 23 feet if you're looking at our building to the right. 60 feet wide would be lovely. Maybe even 50 feet to the left as you're going into the dog park, just for some thoughts.
I think it means 50 feet to the left when you go into the.
And the dog park about 50 feet. We're right where the dumpster's at right now that you have. That would be wonderful. I'm sure, and I don't want to speak out of turn with Gary, I think he's listening, but if we needed to screen it off, put some fence, move some fence, put some hedges up or whatever, and kind of do a permanent kind of deal, I'm sure that our board would be more than willing to do that. And we're actually talking two boards, Enterprise and Celebration.
Thank you, Russ, for clarifying that. I'll open this to the board for comments and questions. I do want to make a quick comment, though. We've been having discussions as a board of how we want to develop the civic corridor. And we were talking about investing a fair amount of money in doing an engineering study back there. So I guess as I open this up, I think it's important that we kind of figure out how we want to do this. And I think Kevin had made a comment about, will there be rent? And I think that's basically what Gary and Russ are discussing is, you know, can we buy it from you? Can we rent it from you? How can we make this work? So because we're talking about a fair amount of money in the engineering end of this, I think it's something that we need to have serious conversation with the board. So I'll open it up for board comment or questions.
Just to educate Gary and Russ and Natasha a little more, we had looked at Lot B, which is where you're talking about, just to the left of your building towards the dog park, and Lot D on the other side. Plus we've got the two grass fields, and we are having drainage issues. And when we had looked at developing something for Lot B, we had learned that there were issues with drainage, there were issues with retention ponds and everything. We did not know you were putting water in the ditch. The argument of whether you can put in water, to me, is not, if the retention pond could hold it well and if everything was draining perfectly, I would say, sure, it seems like we're being good citizens. The issue in my mind is we need this darn engineering study so that we can actually sit here and say, what the heck is going on? Because if all this additional water in there, your water and rainwater and everything else, and all these, you know, Disney gave us swampland, and we're finding out that developing swampland costs money. And you know, so that's where I'm struggling at. Not so much working with you, but figuring out how do we put together our civic corridor plan within the reality of what we've got for capacity and a retention pond and drainage. So I don't think we're going to resolve this one today. I think it would be nice in some ways to have a joint project, our team working with Gary and his team, to actually figure out, all right, what is the drainage capacity issues back there with looking to develop the civic corridor as a whole.
Yeah, and if I may, if we could get our engineer maybe to help also. I personally, with the footprint that we have right now, with the dirt that we have there, and the water we're putting here, I personally don't think it's impacting that pond back there at all. It's a dry pond. I've never seen more than about 4 inches of water in that pond myself. And where we're kind of dumping that dirt, we've got it kind of bermed up. A lot of the rainwater off the road is going just into that one spot that's probably 30 foot wide. If there's more issues down towards the dog park, I don't think that has anything whatsoever to do at the moment with our footprint that we're working in.
But Brian, to your point, sure, we would be more than happy to work with you as you go through the process. As Russ just indicated, I think it was Hanson Waller that did the drainage work on that, and they're familiar with it. So yeah, if you don't mind having Neil and JR and your staff work with our staff, at least we can get some answers, and then we can come up with a solution.
For the CROA board, I mean, it's Neil and it's Mike Henry, but if Neil and Mike Henry could work with Gary, Russ, and their engineer and the appropriate people, we can get a better answer on the civic corridor as a whole. I think that's something we needed to do anyway.
And I believe Mark was our engineer for the project.
And part of what we're looking at in the civic corridor is once we get the engineering work done and we find out the utilization and cost for getting it, we may have use for that land. So we're talking, what I think we're talking now is about a temporary solution unless we were to choose to sell the property. But right now we're talking about a temporary solution because that is the same space we were looking at for pickleball. Am I correct?
Yeah, I think that was the area, yes.
Yeah, so we need to look at what, quote unquote, the lay of the land in terms of engineering, and then what do we envision for our long-term planning in terms of use of the facilities, including the grass fields. I mean, if that's going to be stay the same as it is.
Yeah, and David, that may very well work on a temporary basis.
Yeah.
We're going to be working with Mattamy down in Island Village to get us an additional space for the CDD to store equipment and do what Russ is sort of outlining. So I'm not sure I see it as a permanent solution.
Good.
And if it is a permanent solution, we would be willing to talk to you about buying the land.
Yeah, and so I think working together, do the engineering, that helps to outline the plan for the future.
Thank you, Gary. Is there anything else that you needed from the board, Gary, with regards to what's going on over there?
No, just your permission to work with your staff to look at those alternatives and come back to the board with a plan.
We are totally good with that. I see heads shaking. So you've got at least 4 of us that are
Yes.
in general consensus that yes, go ahead and continue working forward on that. Neil and Mike, thank you.
Vanessa, if I may, real quick.
Absolutely, Russ, go ahead.
May we continue to do our utility repairs in that spot until something's said one way or the other? Or
I think I don't know if this one just dropped off or not. Board, are we? What is your?
Okay.
Are you good with that,
Yeah,
Neil and
yeah.
Mike? Are there any issues with doing that right now? That we said now that we've determined that there is no dangerous anything like that. It's just sewer drain stuff. Is there any? Are there any concerns, Mike or Neil, with regards to that for the time being until we can work out our problems?
For the time being, I don't have any concerns. I know we have a plan on Monday to do a site walk with an engineer. And if he mentions anything, then of course we'll bring it up, but I can't imagine that being any impacting issue right now.
Since we haven't been doing anything right now. Yeah, I gotcha. Thank you. Thanks, Mike. And I'll open it up to public comment. Steve Northridge, I see you would like to say something real quick about this. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I mean, this is extremely concerning to me. First of all, that's lot B that was talked about being for pickleball. The second of all, the duration discussed, but no talk about what the duration may be. Is it 1 week? Is it 1 month? Is it 3 years? There's no discussion of that. If it's a sale or rental of a long period of time, is the CROA board even able to do that independently? Or does that have to be approved by the community? There were questions in Artisan Park regarding that.
Any sale of our personal amenities from CROA, if we were to sell it, would have to go to a public vote. We cannot sell off amenities that are ours. We cannot do that.
And there's also been legal opinion about renting for any duration of period that's more than just a temporary usage could also be construed in that manner as well. We would have legal opinion of that when we're in Artisan Park. So I'm really concerned about that. Also, we're talking about a civic corridor. We're potentially going to invest a lot of money, make it look nice, and we're going to have a lot more facility, a lot more stuff being dumped on there. It's like going to treat it like a trash bin. First of all, the CDD building was built. It must have been built with inadequate parking because parking is being done across the street. There's inadequate parking. How was that permitted? How was it allowed to have that little bit of parking and allocation for that particular property? Just a lot of concerns about this. There's also CDD property that was previously sold to Mattamy for a road access for the new property that's being built on World Drive. So CDD has property back there. Why wouldn't that be an adequate place closer to I-4? But put this in the middle, right in the middle of a property in the athletic fields and all that property that we spent a lot of money on, make it aesthetically nice, and we're going to put this as a dumping ground for drainage event. It seems unconscionable.
I got you, Steve. Thank you. And you're not hearing the board disagree with what you're saying. So
And
the
also,
reason
I
why,
haven't heard any discussion of the duration. They said for a duration. Is that there, that if it's even for duration, be considered, that even has to be discussed.
Brian, go ahead. Thank you, Steve.
Steve, thank you for your comments, but you got to understand the board's just hearing this now. So we're not even, what we're doing is just asking them to work with the engineer while we look at the civic order outline. We're not proposing, voting on, or doing anything. We're veterans of about 10 or 15 minutes on this topic, like you.
We're working our way through. Thank you, Brian. So right now, go ahead and do what you need to do. We will make this timely, meaning we'd like a recap with regards to when management has a more updates with regards to what they need, whether or not Mattamy, that Mattamy area is something that they can use for the time being, rather than doing it on the civic corridor. I think the goal is to try and resolve this issue as quickly as possible, so that CCDD and the county can do what they need to do. And keep in mind, this is all resident property that they're removing this stuff from. So I think it's important we recognize that there is a need. We just need to figure out how to make it best work for everybody. Any other comments with regards to this from the board? Okay, and again, trying to move for timeliness here. Then we'll move on to the CROA CJC budgets. And thank you very quickly. And thank you very much to CCDD for joining us regarding the Halloween conversation, as well as for the civic corridor comment. We really do appreciate your partnership as we move forward. Thank you.
Can someone put up the reconciliation page? Okay, so we had the budget conversation on the 25th, and we're trying to do a mailing on the 9th or shortly after the 9th. And I thought one of the ways to do that might be good is if you look at the bottom left there, where I got green, in 2020, our rate was $975.80. And on the 25th, we discussed an increase assessment rate per homeowner to 89.34, which was 1.4%. This week, we've worked on a few, we being really Town Hall, has worked on a few big picture items. So let me just kind of walk everybody through the big picture from the left to the right. Founders Day. We got the details from JR, Deal, and others, and it's got events on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. Clearly, the events on Thursday and the event on Saturday are going to involve the community as a whole, not just Celebration residents. There's going to be concerts, there's going to be fireworks, there's going to be a road race, a virtual race, and everything. So we said community events should be paid for out of CCS, and items that are specific to Celebration residents should be paid out of CROA. So what we've done here is we actually have reallocated $51,000 from CROA expense to CCS expense. CCS has the cash. CCS is actually gets about $20,000 of funding a year from CJC, which 75% comes from CROA and 25% comes from CANOA. So that is a big item that is, and when you look at the expense down there in the bottom left, you'll see the 4890 is a negative number. So when I have a positive 56 there, that means that it's a reduction in expense. When we talked last week, we had for recreation budget, there was $20,000 for just small contingency type events. We had made a decision last week to reduce that by $10,000. Key card income, we had made a decision last week that it just hadn't been budgeted properly, so we increased our revenues there by $9,000. We actually increased our expense for sanitation dumpsters by $20,000. In the original budget, we had no dumpster expense because Kinley was going to we were going to have a new contract with him. As more conversation happened this week, got into questions of the duration of the contract and stuff like that. And we decided as a board this week via emails that it would be wiser to just put the expense back in. That saving might materialize, but we need formal proposals from Ken. So that's the $20,000 there. Cyber insurance is actually required by the insurance companies to be budgeted in the entity, so we put in 2,000 of expense there. And staff costs got trued up this week with approvals from CCMC and Arizona and all that type of stuff. So that was a reduction of total cost of 23,000. So the result of all those items is that we would need $71,000 less in revenues to have a balanced budget. So in the bottom right-hand corner, what I'm saying, what I'm saying is there, you know, we had 975.80 last year. That would be 975.11 this year, which is essentially flat. I do not have a final file from CCMC. What's really been happening this week is Susan Kern specifically and Neil and others have been working on starting to update that file, but just chasing items where they needed to get better information and dot I's and cross T's. I'll get that from Susan some point next week. And when I have that file, I'll do a reconciliation to mine. So there is potential that these numbers could move a little. I could see the board being able to do one of two things. We could say, let's stay at 975.80 and keep it flat. And if there's a little difference when we reconcile, I could move something up or down a little to make it work. Or we could make a decision to have an increase of, say, 0.5%. Which might be 975.80 going to 980 using a round number or something like that. That would give us a little room for error if there's a reconciliation item. And if we find out as the economy weakens in that having a little more money would be beneficial, that would also work too. I think the reconciliation part of this is pretty straightforward following up on last week's meetings and emails we've had this week. And I think the real decision we need, Vanessa, is, you know, okay, do we want to keep it flat? Do we want to go up 0.5%? That's what the board needs to decide. Because once the board decides that, Susan Kearns is going to finalize their file. I'll finalize my file from hers, and then documentation that needs to get finalized next week to be to do a mailing to the community could happen. And the mailing would be on the 9th of October or 10th, 11th, one of those dates are pretty quick. And we'd vote on this formally at our board meeting on the 28th.
Thank you for the recap, Brian. And thank you again for management for working so diligently on this. I know you guys have been working really hard with Steve, or with Brian, and with Brian and with the whole finance committee. So thank you very much for everybody. So I will open this up to board comment. I'm going to have to bow out here, but I will make my comment really quick before I let David take over the meeting. I am never in favor of going backwards. I think we stayed flat as an association for a very long time. And I am not a proponent of raising taxes or raising our assessments, but I am a proponent of making sure that we're realistic with our budget. We are heading into unknown times, and I think it is the duty of our association to make sure we protect our assets. As a result, I am never in favor of going backwards, but I would totally support the 0.5% increase. We're still well under we're still under $1,000, which I do think is a threshold. I think that's a nominal increase, and I would be in support of doing something like that just as a little cushion. So that's my 10 cents on it. And on this note, David, I'm going to turn the meeting over to you, and thank you all for joining everybody. I have to head off. So thank you very much for your attention. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Vanessa. And I concur 100% with what Vanessa said. I support the 0.5% increase. I think we need a little cushion, whether it's for adjustment or unanticipated expenses that come forward. So I would feel very comfortable with 0.5%. And that's now a reduction of almost 1% from what we discussed at the budget workshop, which I thought was a reasonable increase, but 0.5% is even more reasonable and appropriate. So thank you for all the due diligence on this. So I support what Vanessa just said. Mary Ann's here. Diana, you have any comments?
Yeah, just an incredible job by Brian and Susan and all the team. I agree with the 0.5%. I think, we've had the it's even less than what we've done in previous years, given the unstable or possible reduction or unstable economy going forward. So I agree the 0.5% is probably a prudent thing to do right now. So I think we should move forward.
Okay, good. I don't think Kevin's still on. I think he had to bow out. Is Marianne on? Brian?
Yes, I'm trying. It's Mary. I'm trying to be in I'm trying to be in two meetings at one time.
I know. I know. Thank you.
As you know from the previous discussion, when we were talking about the budget in general, I think this is a good idea. I agree with what was said. 0.5% is even better than what I think we were originally thinking about and looking at. It's certainly reasonable. And I definitely am behind this. I think it was very well thought out. It's a logical, reasonable presentation that outlines the whys. And that's the most important part to me, is that if we make movements, that we know why and that they're logically crafted. And I feel that this meets that bar for me.
Well, David, if we use if we use Vanessa, we know she was a yes at 0.5%. It was her motion and your second.
I'll second it. Let's.
What we'd be saying is the motion is that we will increase last year's 975.80 by 0.5% per homeowner unit, and that Susan and team is responsible with working for me to allocate the expenses to make it happen.
Yeah, let's go forward. Let's see if there's any resident comment. I see none. I see no hands raised. So let's just see if there's anyone who wants to say anything on this. Again, we had a long budget workshop not too long ago. Okay, why don't we call the question? I see no resident comments. Diana?
Yes.
Marianne?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. And Vanessa had made the motion, so that's unanimous, 5-0, that passes. Next agenda item was future workshop topics. What did we have? And I know blended with that was the next workshop on Friday the 16th. I know that a couple of us are out of pocket, so that would mean 4. So is that a meeting we want to have on the 16th?
We have a hard enough time getting everybody here when we think we got 6 people. I think hoping we have 4 is extremely tight.
That means all 4
Yes.
have to be there. So my suggestion is look at our dates. Susan, do you know what we have next and what is needed, or Neil, what is needed and when? Yeah, while you're pulling that up, I know historically, years ago, we would have a monthly workshop and sometimes not monthly. That's way before Neil's time. So there might be 9 workshops a year. With the pandemic, we started with weekly workshops and then we morphed into every other week. So the question is, what is timely? What do we need? We do know that we're going to have a brief board session when we have a resolution about the sheriff regarding Halloween. But what do you see on the future agenda in terms of future workshops? I know there was no attachment. We had. Go ahead.
There should have been an attachment. I have it right here, if not in front of me.
I'm sorry.
But lakeside security was something that needed to be discussed, the CCSC utilization and access. We were going to discuss that based on the last board meeting. Amphitheater, which I think will be on an agenda in the next couple of months. But we also had Halloween needs to be wrapped up. Ken, I believe Ken
Lee?
Yeah, Ken Lee wanted to I saw an email come through, and Neil can speak to this, but an email come through that he wanted to maybe present to the board at some point in time, but we definitely need to get Halloween wrapped up.
Okay.
And I was going to say, I don't know if that means next Friday we move the meeting up. We also need to have an executive session with Angus and Terry about the construction defect, which I had suggested to Vanessa that we do right after the 16th meeting. So do you want to shoot for the 9th?
So how would that work for, we have Brian, Diana, and Marianne. How does that work in schedules? I know I blocked every Friday over the course of the last 6 months, but.
Yeah, I'm fine for the 9th. It's the 16th. I'm out of town.
Yeah. And I'm 98% gone, meaning a 2% chance of not going.
I have a conflict on 9th. I know I can't be there.
Okay. And I don't know if Mary Ann's,
I cannot.
okay.
Let's tell you what, Dave. Why don't we have to do the date of the next meeting via email and figure out?
Otherwise, it would be the 30th, the day before Halloween. If we stay with every other week.
Yeah, and that's if we also stay with every other Friday. I understand that there's a need to keep consistency, but your management is more than flexible if we need to have a couple Tuesdays or Thursdays here and there to accommodate.
Do we want to look at that week? Or maybe we do a doodle or figure out the specific date based on board availability and staff of management availability?
I recommend doing a doodle.
Let's just do a doodle, not worry about it here.
And that, yeah, I recommend doing a doodle and just making sure we have enough time to do like any noticing or anything else that we need to do, because then at least we'll have a plan.
And then we can dovetail the executive session with that, perhaps, Susan?
I will work to make sure that happens with Susanna.
What is more urgent? If we're, for example, if we're looking at week after next, we're looking at a doodle, what is more urgent to address?
Halloween is very important.
And we've dealt with that a lot today, so there may be some loose ends on that, but is there anything else that is very, very timely? Whether it's, if we look at doodle.
The only thing that I think is probably, it just went out of my head.
Sanitation, amphitheater, CCFC access, Lakeside.
For me, David, it's Halloween and budget, and you took a big bite out of that.
Okay, so Halloween and budget, okay.
Oh, and scheduling meetings for the rest of the year and into next year. We have no meetings on the books, budget workshop from November 1st on.
So we should be looking at what is our schedule for workshops and what are our overall needs. Mary Ann was trying to say something, I think. Or Diana?
Oh, that wasn't me.
Okay, thank you.
Eileen also had a comment, David.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see that. Eileen, go ahead.
Okay, well, this is Gerald Ball.
Oh, Jerry, go ahead.
Hi. You'll be sending out a number of mailings now, certainly the budget. It was my understanding, and perhaps I missed it, that the management company had been directed to put a message on each bill that was sent asking for people's email addresses. In this age of technology, it's a wonderful way to communicate with people. Perhaps I missed it on our recent bills, but I did not see this. And we'll be sending out all the budget information. That's another opportunity to have the same message relative to getting in email addresses. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. And just for clarification, Neil and JR, don't we have two different kinds of email addresses? Don't we have the official record email address for official business and then separately Friday Flash? It could be the same email, but someone has to sign up for Friday Flash. So if we can clarify what a resident needs to do to make sure that their records are up to date. And following up on Jerry's comment, looking at something in print form when we have to do something in the mail, something added on. I know that there's typically a separate sheet in the mailing with information. So that's an opportunity to say, if you haven't registered, if you're not sure if you're up to date, here's how you get it up to date, whether it's for official records and or Friday Flash, if those are indeed different. I continually meet.
Common. Yeah, David, it's pretty common for us to put in flyers or inserts with, budget notices or, quarterly and et cetera. JR can give you the metrics on how many emails he's been able to capture for Friday Flash. But I mean, this isn't me having an objection, but it's up to each individual homeowner. It's their responsibility to provide management with a primary email address for all formal communication. So Mr. Barr agreed, great opportunity for us to continue to solicit, but there is no legal requirement for homeowners to provide us anything other than a mailing address. So yes, we do capture it. I just don't know to what extent JR has had voluntary emails for Friday Flash. I'm assuming it's in the thousands.
Oh, there are thousands, but It's amazing how many residents I still meet that say, what's the Friday flash? I've lived here 10 years. What's that? It's just amazing. I mean, it's just amazing. Because that has to be a separate, because that doesn't count as an official mailing. In my understanding.
Anybody can use whatever email address they want for that.
Right.
And again, I'm getting a little too litigious, but the email address that homeowners provide management for formal communication, we can only use that for formal communication. We can't take the information from the Friday flash and then arbitrarily start soliciting.
Exactly.
So it's a little overcomplicated thanks to our lawmakers.
I understand that.
Am I still on?
Jerry, go ahead.
Neil, I understand what you're saying. The law, we will want to respect the law, but maybe homeowners have been here for a while and they don't even know this now. And I think in this communication age, we ought to be encouraging them to do this stuff and give them the appropriate information, perhaps.
I'll echo what I said before. I totally support us adding a flyer and insert into our upcoming mailers to solicit more contact information, Mr. Barr.
Yeah. Okay, so, and that may be something that we do fairly regularly with those inserts, because those come out quarterly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. So the wrap up on this is we're going to do a doodle poll as to the next date. We don't want to wait till the end of October. We want to do it, I don't know if it's the end of next week, beginning of the following. So we'll just do doodle to check out some date options. Is that something Susan and Neil do the doodle with the staff? Do that with the board?
We can do it with Patrick's help.
Or Patrick, that's fine. That's fine. Okay, great. That'll be a big help. And so we have other topics. So those are not yet defined as to what would be when, but we'll do the Angus and Terry executive session tied in with a board workshop, and we'll make sure we have those noticed. Do we have anything else for today? Anything from any board member or any resident? Someone says, can we define a doodle? That's an electronic looking at the calendar. Go to doodle whatever, and but you can set up and see when people are available. So that it's a polling. It's an online polling. Technology. Yeah, what's a Google? Remember that one?
Yeah, I just made a comment that I thought that if the email addresses that town hall has are for official communications, couldn't you just send an official communication asking if they want to opt in to receive the flash? And that's how most corporate communications are done, where you're asked if you want to opt in for optional types of solicitations.
Steve, I'll have to ask our team who actually does most of the technology and get their understanding. I'm assuming yes is the answer, but I'll have to verify with them.
Yeah. Anything else for the good of the order? Do we have a motion for adjournment?
So moved.
Thank you, Brian. Second?
Yes.
Thank you,
Second.
Diana. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned. We have 4 in favor, so thank you.